Hello again. Star Wars versus Star Trek. Now, it's no real secret that I'm a bit of a geek. And up until recently I was pretty undecided on the subject. It was my opinion that Star Wars and Star Trek were very different beasts, and comparing them was kind of stupid. After all, one is a TV series that's been running for about 40 years. The other one is a series of 6 movies. Or, depending on how devoted a fan you are, 3 movies and 3 imposters, which ruined the series! And people would say to me, which do you like better, Star Wars or Star Trek? And I would say, I just can't choose, Captain. I don't have the power. I cannot bend the laws of physics. Damn it, Jim. I'm a doctor, not a fanboy. Fascinating, Captain. Each obviously has its good points and its bad points. And as you can see, so far my loyalty lies with neither one specifically. But recently I've begun to think about which is actually the better series. I know what you're thinking. It's like comparing apples and oranges. But let's try anyway. And you know what, I've got no real interest in discussing which has the better technology, and I couldn't really care less if Worf could beat Chewbacca. Don't ask me whether the Borg could defeat the Imperial Death Star. I don't care whether an X-Wing could beat the Defiant, and I certainly don't care whether Picard could beat Obi-Wan Kenobi. All I know is I started to think about it yesterday, and I came to the conclusion... Are you ready for this? Star Trek is the better show. Let's look at it this way. Star Wars tells a fairly predictable story about loss and redemption and a father and son, and pretty much George Lucas ripped off every Western or Kung Fu movie he could get his hands on. But what Gene Roddenberry did with Star Trek, there's no comparison. Gene Roddenberry took issues like prejudice and racism and sexism and just about any ism you could think of. And 40 years ago he was talking about the stuff on TV when no one else was brave enough to tackle these issues. See, Star Trek is a study of the human condition. It's a study of morality. It's a study of everything we are. Putting it in the setting that he's got it in the 24th and onwards century gives him the ability to approach these issues in really interesting ways without it sounding like some cheesy after-school special. The show really became a fascinating study all about the human condition and sociology and morality and all that wonderful stuff. See, my personal journey with Star Trek started many years ago now, when my friend Ian and I, we left our parents' places and got a little flat of our own and started to make our way in the big wide world as the grown-ups. He'd been a Star Trek fan for quite some time, and I used to make fun of him for it because, as everybody knows, Star Trek fans are nerds and geeks and completely foreign to the real world, right? Well, anyway, I pretty much refused to watch it because, you know, I didn't understand it, didn't get it. And then Voyager came out and he started renting them. So every month a new Voyager video would come out and we'd go down to the rental place and we'd bring it home and we'd watch it. And I started to get addicted to the show. On the Star Wars kind of thing, you know, being in my mid to late 20s, I grew up with it. First movie came out shortly after I was born. I saw it as a very, very young kid. Grew up watching the sequels to it. And then there was nothing. It was just those 3 movies and they stood alone. And they were great. It was a wild, fantastic adventure, and you know, Luke versus Darth Vader versus himself, and the evil Emperor, and Obi-Wan sacrificing himself. It was a wonderful romp. But as I grew up and I saw more cinema, but particularly stuff that predated Star Wars, I began to see how pathetically unoriginal George Lucas actually is. And I began to appreciate the Star Wars movies in a different way. That being, they pioneered a lot of the special effects stuff that became standard before the digital revolution sort of revolutionized things. And Industrial Light and Magic and George Lucas have my utmost respect for just burning through that new territory and exploring new things and daring to try new things and be different in regards to what they can do with special effects. And the movie industry owes a lot to those guys. But as movies, as a story experience, and I don't know why I hate to say this, but they're shallow. Really, really shallow. They try and give you a veneer of being deep and cerebral, and, you know, Luke nearly turning to the dark side and finally turning Darth Vader back and saving him just in time and turning on the Emperor and no. But you know what? I'm not 8 years old anymore and I'm not fooled by that anymore. They're shallow. It's badly written. Not afraid to say it, Star Wars, pretty badly written. Except for the obvious example, and every Star Wars fans out there knows what I'm talking about, the one where George Lucas had a little less to do with it. That's the best one. I'm going to go with Star Trek. It's a smarter show. It's a more socially responsible show. And there's a very good reason why the smartest people in the world, our scientists and all those folks working at NASA, they love Star Trek. And it's because Star Trek offers us something to look forward to hope for, a future we can strive for. You know, the elimination of war and disease and all that sort of stuff, blah, blah, blah. Although when you watch the series, they haven't really eliminated war and disease all that much. They're just different, aren't they? But aside from that, it gives us something to reach out for. Star Wars doesn't offer us anything to reach for besides lightsabers. So, after years and years of standing in the middle ground and saying, well, Star Trek, Star Wars, they're too different to compare, why bother? If I were forced to choose, I would choose to worship at the altar of Roddenberry. And George, if you're watching, I can see what you were trying to do with the prequels, but you missed. So while some of you may prefer a galaxy far, far away, personally, I'd rather go where no man has gone before. Gene Roddenberry, a master of the study of the human condition. George Lucas, not so much. May the Force be with you. Live long and prosper. Well, I think I've rambled enough on this particular subject. Maybe next time we'll talk about how Farscape is better than both those shows combined. Catch you next time.